Ladies, gents, and NBs, you've just entered the Last Save Lounge, a weekly interview show all about the games that saved our progress and a little bit of us. I'm your host, Aaron TurboHoodie Amendola, and I'm happy you're here. Welcome. This week, I am joined by Ryan Gilliam, one of the co-founders of new gaming site Rogue. Ryan, how you doing? Thanks for joining me.
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I was telling you before we started recording, listeners of this show, if you heard me on Gamers with Jobs or a few other shows, you know I'm a big Destiny head. You know that I've got the tattoo. You know I have my squad, Dads of Destiny, like all this stuff. Ryan was such an instrumental way for me to get through raids, for me to get through exotic missions. So it really is a pleasure to have you on today, Ryan. You said you're looking forward to Marathon. You think it's going to be good?
Yes. Yeah, I'm looking forward to. By the time this comes out, the server slam will be going, and so that will inevitably be the thing that I'm spending all of my time on. But yeah, I played a bit of I played the April playtest, and then maybe I've played stuff in between that. Who could say from an NDA standpoint? But back at Polygon, the last big thing I did there was go and see the game at the studio, and that really kind of helped. Go figure, getting taught the game by developers really helped kind of make the whole thing click. And then when I got home and got to actually play with my friends, I was like, oh, okay, this is gonna destroy my entire life. So yeah, that is the thing that is on my horizon that everything is moving out of the way of.
Rad. Yeah, so that's coming up. Are you playing anything right now that's really piqued your interest?
Yeah, I'm in that weird 2 or 3 day between space in terms of when we're recording right now of waiting for Resident Evil Requiem to come out, which also coincides with the Marathon stuff. So I can do that during my multiplayer fun time with friends, and then sit on my couch with my wife and our 3 TVs nonsense. I can focus on Resident Evil Requiem. So in that in between period, I'm in a weird limbo of playing a little bit of Resident Evil 4 remake, and I played the first quarter of Inscription again for the first time last night for no real reason. For the past week, I've been the big thing I was doing was I was 100%ing Astrobot again for seemingly no reason, but I went back to that as we were starting up Justified for the first time and just needed to throw something on, and so I went through and got every possible thing I could again on a second complete save on that game because it's perfect.
It really makes me happy to hear you say that because I love Astrobot. I got the platinum. I was enamored with it the entire time, and this is coming from somebody that liked but didn't love the last few Mario games. Astrobot, the platforming itself, second to none, but it also had that nostalgic layer because I grew up a PlayStation kid, and my wife, was a Nintendo kid. She's like, oh, it's one big commercial. I was like, you shut your mouth. I just rescued Kratos. You don't get to say that to me.
Yeah.
That final level of Astrobot where it chains together all the mechanics to 5 different areas of expertise. I was sweating. My hands were shaking. All the Eminem lyrics. I really, really hope that they end up making another one, if not a bunch more DLC, because I don't think I played a game that made me smile that much, maybe since Mario Galaxy 2, to be honest. It was just a good time.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm 94, so I grew up in the very much the character platformer era. It's not my big game, but Banjo-Kazooie is one of my favorite games of all time. I'm way into the collectathon. After Bonanza came out last year, I voluntarily replayed Donkey Kong 64 and 100% completed it for I think the first time in my life, and that was a lot. But I love a good character platformer game, and I mean Sony's been looking for a mascot forever, for decades, and it's kind of crazy how one generation feels like it's really made it Astrobot. That game is so
found
good.
Dead in a ditch at this point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Sackboy shot in the back of the head. Just mysterious circumstances,
no scope down the sewer. Bye.
Yeah. Where is Sackboy? Sackboy hasn't been around in 2 generations at this point. Well, that's not true. He had his
Media Molecule is
platformer game
closed. Did they?
No, they're still going. I think no one knows what they're working on. I think I might be talking out of my ass a little bit here, but I think they at least were partially responsible for that 3D platform that came out right around the PlayStation 5's launch that nobody played. But I don't know what they're up to nowadays. I don't think anyone knows what they're up to.
Wait, are you talking about Sackboy's Big Adventure?
Yeah, Sackboy's Big Adventure.
You know what? That's a fun game though.
Is it good? Okay.
Yeah, it's
Cool. I
great
played
in
a couple
co-op.
levels and I was like, it's okay. But it feels
Yeah,
like it's not what it's not Sackboy. It's not what people like. It's not the thing that people
no, it has a
necessarily
good
would.
jump. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's totally different from Little Big Planet. Yeah, that's a good point. But like, I just feel like even when Astrobot just it's PS5 demo like ate that game's lunch is partially why I got a copy of it when the game first started or when the console came out and I like didn't touch Sackboy's Big Adventure very much because I had Astrobot's Playroom right there on the console already and it's like, well, this feels better and is infinitely more charming. And then yeah, man, the full platformer is just they could make it's frankly feels illegal that they don't have to make one of those every year now. You can't bring that back to that successful of degree and then just be like, well, wait another couple years for the next one. No, like Sony needs to spend whatever money they got to spend to make it happen. That this can like, it's not fair that we get a Call of Duty every year and who knows how long we have to wait for an Astrobot. I think that's my platform, I
It's
guess.
how I feel about Remedy games.
Yes,
I waited
also
20 years for Alan Wake 2, and like I'll wait another
so worth
20.
it though.
I'd rather not. I'd rather
Yeah,
have one
I'd
every
rather not.
year. There's not
Yeah.
enough coffee for Sam Lake. Well, before we get into the mid I want to make sure we cover this. So you're one of the co-founders of Rogue,
Mm-hmm.
which kind of absorbed Big Friendly Guide. Because I know
Yeah.
that you did a lot of guides at Polygon. Can you tell us a little bit about your work and what Rogue is all about?
Yeah, I mean, like, I did pretty much everything. Like, I basically any kind of thing that I could have done at Polygon, I did over like the 9 years that I was there. But I really ended strong in the guides section before we all got taken out back and shot. And I developed a good friendship with Jeffrey Perkin, who was our another one of the good, like long-standing guides people there. And so when we all got laid off, we like very quickly started up the Big Friendly Guide blog. As a fun experiment on being like, well, people jump in and support guides, and the answer is like, kinda, maybe. But guides are a big SEO play. We didn't want to be the search engine people. And then basically the folks at Rascal News, the tabletop gaming site, they're all awesome, reached out to us and was like, hey, there's a couple other people at Polygon who might be interested in doing something. Would you want to potentially talk to them? And basically brought Jeff and I in and we hooked up with Cass Marshall, who started about the exact same time as I did around Polygon, and then one of the old commerce writers from Polygon, Alice Jovanet, and we launched Rogue as kind of like a new site built from the four of us that's kind of trying to capture something of what Polygon did. I think now we're moving more in a direction of like something we've really enjoyed doing over the past 6 months of doing the website is like more recommends style content, like trying to be a place where people can go to find like games that are worth their time in the day and age where like that is becoming increasingly
Too many
difficult
games.
to
Yeah.
answer. There's too many games and a lot of them are really good and some of them are not labors of love as they are. You know, that's always good to appreciate the effort that went into something, but it doesn't necessarily make it
I
good,
love
unfortunately.
Romeo Must Die, but also, or no, sorry, I love Romeo Must Die the movie, but Romeo is a Dead Man. I'm having a great time, but
Yeah.
I know it's a 7 out of 10 game that I'm like, I have to recommend with caveats.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And like those caveats are hard to those are the kind of recommendations you can only usually get from like a friend who's played it or who knows what they're talking about. And so like something we've really enjoyed doing and I think we're going to lean harder into as we move forward is like stuff like this week that we're recording, like Steam Next Fest week is like really awesome. I found some over the summer last year I found some really like games like Ball Pit and Absalom were games that showed up in the Next Fest that I was like, wow, this is rad. And I know those games came out and popped, but I was like on the train for both of those well before because I found them on Next Fest. I thought they were really cool. And we did the same thing in the winter. And now this week we're like trying to find 15, 20, 30 demos over the course of the week that we can like take our time to sift through a bunch of stuff that we're like, this isn't it. And a bunch of other stuff that's great and throw it together to recommend to our readers and subscribers and stuff in addition to like trying to find fun new things for people who are willing to support us financially. We've got some announcements for that coming up very soon that we're excited about. So yeah, it's been a big learning experience. None of us were like leadership at Polygon.
Sure.
Like we were all like Jeff and I lovingly referred to the guys section as like the boiler room at Polygon. Like we help keep the lights on, but it's not necessary. It's not the sexy glamorous post. We would have people at Polygon got nominated for like very well-deserved awards, and we're just in there writing about Destiny and Dragon's Dogma and all sorts of stuff, helping enable other people to do amazing journalistic work.
Where would I be had I not known how to defeat Wrath of the Machine? I would still be in that
Truly.
raid. I'd still be getting run over by the Zamboni.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think it's admirable.
that one was before my time even doing raid guide stuff. So like I'm with you. But I stood on the shoulders of giants on that one to try to bring raid guides for Destiny to the text format, which was a Herculean task. Often after like a weekend of I would try to do not necessarily competitive raiding with my friends in Destiny, but we would go for the emblem, we would go for like the placement. So
Mhm.
oftentimes those raid guides were written after like a hardcore weekend of 2 or 3 hours of sleep and a lot of Destiny raiding. So it was fresh but
Well, it's not
painful.
even just a weekend because I know how you need to get raid ready. I
Oh yeah.
remember having like the scout, the pulse, the hand, like whatever the modifiers were going to be. I We had an Excel spreadsheet and there were 6 slots, there were 6 alternates.
Hmm.
And thank goodness Fire Team Finder came along. Made my life so much easier. But for a while, it felt like I went to school for musical theater. I never played sports. This is as
Hell
close to
yeah.
competitive sports as I've ever gotten, was
Same.
trying to organize a Destiny raid.
Yeah. Nope. It's very people like the gamers aren't ready to hear it, but like organized rating is very musical theater coded for sure. Like it's extremely
Wow,
in
that's
that
the
realm.
clip.
Yeah. They're not ready for it. They're not ready. But the amount, another one of I was also a big musical theater kid, and another one of my raid teammates is a big musical theater kid. And so when we get talking about various different things, I'm assuming, muted by the rest of our chat almost every time. So,
Yeah, we would. My buddy Sean and I would sing the confrontation from Les Mis. We like in the early hours of the morning. I would
mhm.
replace the ghost's voice with an impression of John Lovitz. Like weird stuff happens in a raid when you like are sleep deprived. Your damage output is not measuring up, and you just kind of forget the mechanics one time and put the controller down and walk away. All of the emotions
Mhm.
during Wrath of the Machine and several others. I don't have it in me anymore, but gosh, I still love watching them. This is going to be fun. This is going to be great. I'm excited to get into your favorite game of all time, Ryan. But before we do that, I just want to say a few words such as The Last Slave Lounge is supported by Patreon. You can go and become a patron by heading to patreon.com/hoodieweather. By supporting Hoodie Weather, patrons will get a bonus segment each week, a bundle of Hoodie Weather games, and ad-free episodes in your feeds. And hey, if times are tough, I think you are too. You can still support The Last Save Lounge by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app of choice. FYI, we saw 2 more Apple Podcast reviews come in over the weekend. Thank you so much. We're now up to 19. That's crazy. The first 2 months of the show have been really fulfilling for me, and I hope they're fulfilling for you, dear listener. Tell your friends, tell your enemies. We're not picky. Tell your rivals. I would love to have your rivals listen to this and then have you bond and become friends. That'd be great. But hey, let's get back to the show. As I said, I'm joined by Ryan Gilliam, one of the co-founders at Rogue. And Ryan, the big question of Last Save Lounge is, what is your favorite game of all time?
I'm glad I'm here early on in the show's run because I think I got a lot of games that I consider like on a list of like a pantheon of for me, but I think my diehard favorite for getting obnoxiously close to 20 years at this point is the much beloved Mass Effect 2. Uh,
Oh, hell yeah,
Without
dude. Okay.
question. Yeah,
Nice. So
2010,
Uh, eh, I
16
I
years.
remember where I was. I was working at a GameStop when Mass Effect 2 came out,
Hell yeah.
and so many people hadn't played Mass Effect 1, and they were like, "Eh, it looks kind of good, third person over the shoulder shooter." And I remember people watching that opening cutscene and seeing Commander Shepard die and Josh just on the floor. Did you play Mass Effect 1 and lead into ME2, or did you go in to Mass Effect 2 totally cold?
No, I played the hell out of Mass Effect 1. Another fellow Polygon alum, weirdly, Austin Goslin, was my childhood best friend for a long time. We came in at Polygon together. That's a whole weird thing that
That's
I
so
don't
sweet.
have time to get into at all. But he was my best man at my wedding. He was my roommate in college. We worked together at Polygon the entire time. Both of us were there until until Polygon imploded. kind of introduced me to Mass Effect 1. He picked it up, I think, on a whim, and then was like, "You would really like this, and you should check it out." And so I, unlike you, was not a huge like PlayStation kid. I was a Nintendo kid, and then I was more of like a Halo guy. And so I didn't spend a lot of time in my childhood. I didn't like reading when I was a kid very much, and that kind of limited my ability to jump into RPGs. And so I kind of avoided them just as a habit, to the point where I eventually decided I didn't like them, which isn't true. I love turn-based RPGs now, and RPGs of all flavors, but like KOTOR was kind of, I guess, would have been like one of my first RPGs, but I was terrible at it because I didn't know what was happening because I didn't read anything. I
But
was
there's
just there for the
lightsabers.
Star
That
Wars
makes
of
up
it.
for it.
Yeah. So Mass Effect 1 kind of was my, I guess that's kind of what it was supposed to be, is a like kind of an entry point for more like console-based RPGs. And I fell in love with it immediately. And I loved Mass Effect 1, and I played it over and over again, and I adored Mass Effect 2, and I'm a Mass Effect 3 defender. I like that game quite a bit.
Yeah, okay, okay. That is so fulfilling to hear because, I don't love the ending, but I think that entire game is the ending.
The game is so
And
good. Yeah.
I felt I just felt really fulfilled by it in the end. It makes me so happy to hear that, like, just anyone saying they don't hate it makes me happy, but you like it. Now I'm overjoyed.
Yeah, I liked it when it came out, and the thing I was disappointed in from it, they fixed relatively quickly. I don't think they needed to go back and fix the ending cutscene. I appreciate that they did, though, because to me, the problem with it is kind of part of the reason why I love Mass Effect 2 so much, is that Mass Effect 3's initial ending got wrong what Mass Effect 3 really succeeds at, which is that it made the ending of Mass Effect 3 all about Commander Shepard instead of making it about, you don't see the rest of the crew. When you get a big montage toward the end, you see very little of Garrus and all these other characters that have been with you the entire time. And like, that is the heart of Mass Effect to me, is, and that's why Mass Effect 2 is the game, because it takes so much of what made Mass Effect 1 good, simplifies a lot of it for mostly good, and then it has a lot of Mass Effect 3 really improves on the combat a lot, but like it misses out on the true companion stories. And that's
Mhm.
like, Mass Effect 2 somehow manages to go from being like the original one is like this crazy world-ending threat, where Reapers come in and attack the Citadel at the end, and it's this big confrontation that's like galaxy-wide, and it makes the conflict, which is still very important and dire, in 2, and it makes it small, and it makes it personal,
Mhm.
and it makes it a story about gathering the people who are going to help you do something impossible. And so the game becomes about not Shepard, but Shepard as a conduit for all of these other people and all of these other like interesting races and their story, and like the different cultures that they all come from. Is like, I love that. I've always been the type of person who, when I get invested in something, I don't want to just like, it's not just the story. I want to learn all about the weird nooks and crannies of like the way that the elves differ in culture from the dwarves in Lord of the Rings or whatever. Like, that's what I'm all about. And so for the original Mass Effect really delivered on that extremely well with the codec, and then being able to actually like sit down and like have long conversations with like a Drell about their interesting culture and history and the way that they relate to like the Hanar species that came in from the first game, and like the getting able to have a conversation with somebody who like helped kind of create the genophage, which is like this really
Heavy
dark
shit.
and heavy thing. But the thing that, man, like those, it's such a good series because it makes complex and difficult, it makes things that are like terrible, like something like the genophage, and it makes it into a much heavier and interesting conversation than it could be. Then it's like very easy to knee jerk and be like, it's evil. And it is. It is deeply evil, but they do a very good job of making you try and understand where the people who made that call were coming from. And it doesn't make it less bad, but it makes it way more interesting.
It's makes it understandable from a different perspective.
Right.
And man, you mentioned the aliens. I fall in love with alien species. It's one of the
Hmm.
reasons that I love Star Wars. Mass Effect has some of the funniest aliens. Like there's that one alien, I can't remember the name. They're like short and it the short alien race, of course.
The
The short,
Volus.
yeah, and he gets like high on some sort of
Yep.
spice.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like there's so many humorous moments to balance out that world-ending threat of the Reapers and the Collectors. And I sympathize so much with what the Drell. Oh my goodness, what's his name? The assassin
Thane.
Drell. Yeah. What a VO performance! I think
He's so
all
good.
around. Jennifer Hale was my femshep from the very beginning. You
From
got
the
Martin
beginning, that's
Sheen,
awesome.
like, because yeah, what an amazing game. There's so many different threads I could pull on for Mass Effect 2. I want to go with, as far as companions go, who is your squad? You got to pick two more people. Who did you have with you?
Well, I think I've shifted over the year. Well, I've shifted one over the years, which is like I'm a big Garrus Vakarian fan.
Hell
I
yeah.
love Garrus deeply. Garrus is my favorite companion in any RPG ever. I have since gone on to play many classic RPGs that are very good, and they have some amazing companions. But the nostalgia of Garrus cannot leave me. Garrus in the 2020s is a little bit harder pill to swallow because he's a really bad cop. He's a really
Yeah.
shitty cop. And he really loves to talk about how the ends justify the means in some ways that you're like, buddy,
I don't know, man.
I
Not
don't think
here.
so, man. I love you, but like we should talk. Gets better over the course of the series, but like it's a little rough. I still love him. I
I
cannot
mean, he
shake
aged
it.
better than Ashley. Ashley was bad at the
Ashley was bad
time.
at the time and has gotten worse. Yeah, Ashley's the worst, 100%. And but like I always Garrus is the being able to romance Garrus in Mass Effect 2 is not only responsible for the reason that I ended up switching to FemShep and then never looking back. He's also probably responsible for realizing that I was bisexual in high school. So like Garrus is that also is like probably the funniest and one of the best like interspecies romances in anything I've ever experienced in my life. The conversation you have with Morden about the various different like juices that he recommends not inhaling as a doctor is incredible. I'm big Garrus fan, so Garrus stays with me pretty much all the time. I cannot he dies constantly, but I don't care. He's with me all the time. I was a big Garrus Rex guy in the first game. That was like my main squad. I carried that over to Grunt in Mass Effect 2
Mhm.
initially, who I love. Don't get me wrong. I love Grunt.
It's
I
not
think
quite the same,
it's not quite
you
the
know?
same. But even with Rex in the first game now when I replay it, I have a lot more love and respect for Tally nowadays.
Yeah.
Tally has become I think the Quarians are fascinating, and I really like their species, and I love her and her entire pilgrimage culture and everything that she's going on. I tend to bring Tally with me a lot more. Now, really, I think I try to mix it up more as I've just played the games as I've gotten older and become like characters that I would avoid in the past. I will try to take more of. I think like the only ones I really don't do a whole lot with, and really my biggest problem with Mass Effect 2 is the Zaid and Kasumi aren't like fully voiced and
Kasumu
characters they
Goto.
feel weird like DLC products. But yeah, I mean I try to keep I also try to kind of unfortunately for Caden, Jacob, and Jack and all them, and I kind of tend to avoid the human characters just because I'm very much a
I mean, you're a human, so
yeah, I'm already a human, and
why
I
wouldn't you be friends with an alien?
agreed, and I have always been it bizarre when people are given a choice to play as a species in a game that isn't human and are like, I'm just going to go with a person, and I'm like, what's wrong
Yeah.
with you? What's wrong with you? You do that all the time. You're already people. You've been people your whole life. Be an orc. Let's like do something interesting. So I tend to go with the alien companions, but like yeah, the Mass Effect manages to bypass like one of my biggest sci-fi pet peeves that I have, which even though this does happen with your crewmates, which makes sense, it really drives me nuts in sci-fi when everything that you see is anthropomorphic.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
but some
all
of the aliens
got
in Mass Effect,
yeah,
they
you got like
they
the
don't all do
Hanar
that.
and
Yeah.
the keepers and all the like all those are like you do have a lot of anthropomorphic, but even like stuff like the Volus like don't feel anthropomorphic in the same they don't feel like they're person shaped. They have their own interesting anatomy. Like they do a good job of making even the ones that do have two arms, two legs, and a torso. like the Elcor, the big elephant-looking people who like have to speak their emotion before they finish their sentence, which is responsible for one of my single favorite like ambient dialogue jokes in all of video games, which is the advertisement for in the all Elcor production of Hamlet, which you can stand by and listen to recordings of them being like depressingly and then speaking a soliloquy from Hamlet. It's brilliant. It's I love it deeply. But like they don't look like people. They have, you know, even like they do a good job with making Turians have like the backwards bird legs that I cannot remember the name of, or like Solarians have those like concave chests to them. Like Krogan don't look like they don't just look like a dude in this in a suit to
Hmm.
me. And I think like um I love that like deeply that they go out of their way to make the universe feel like expansive and interesting, and like not everything is going to evolve in the exact same weird way that we did, even if the bigger council rate. And then to continue that, they like make an effort of like all the council races are all kind of the same shape, which
Hmm.
is interesting in its own way. And like humanity jumped that line in a lot of ways, partially because they one might be able to assume that they look pretty familiar to the other council races. It's interesting.
That's that's really true. And of course, living in this current political climate,
Hmm.
you can look back on that and be like, I, this is maybe hitting a few more chords than I would have liked.
Yeah.
It's really good, really great point about the non-anthropomorphic aliens. It's one of the reasons I always love having like a gelatinous cube or like
Yes.
non-carbon based life forms or like beings made of light, because I understand why they do it from a game production standpoint. Character models take a long time to animate, they take a long
Yes.
time to put the skeleton in. So why wouldn't you make it anthropomorphic? But when you're a studio like BioWare and you have a hit of that size, you have a little bit more elbow room. And then EA comes along and is like, why don't you put it in app-based multiplayer to enhance the ending? But that's a different discussion.
Hold on. Mass Effect 3's multiplayer is extremely good,
I
actually.
meant the galactic
That stuff is bullshit.
readiness. Yeah.
The
Ugh.
fact that
The
that it
multiplayer is
adds to the galactic
killer.
grid, but the multiplayer itself was very good.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
lost a
I'll
lot of weird hours to that game.
take a little Gears of War in my Mass Effect. Why
Yeah,
not? Yeah,
sure.
sounds great.
You want me to loot box my way into a Turian? Absolutely. Like, why not? Who cares how predatory this is?
So let's rewind a little bit because I want to take us back to the first time that you played Mass Effect 2, if you remember it. But there's of course that very dramatic opening scene on the Normandy where everything kind of goes to shit. Commander Shepard out of the ship, oxygen everywhere, dies, gets picked up by the elusive man. And gosh, I'm realizing one of the challenges of this show is I need to remember games very quickly, but I played Mass Effect 2 a ton. Was there a moment in Mass Effect 2 that really grabbed you, or was it near the end with that suicide run? Was there any one game that, or was there any one moment that made you realize this is my favorite game?
I mean, it's by virtue of the fact that like I had played a bunch of Mass Effect 1. I think it's kind of just like from like the word jump. Like it is such an obvious upgrade in so many notable ways from the beginning that it is one of the only times in my life as somebody who has been very plugged into the industry and like read about and watched a bunch of stuff well before I was part of things, and then obviously now have been too plugged in for too long. Like it is one of the only times I can remember feeling genuinely that the thing that I had been looking them forward to for months, years was surpassing my expectations. Like it was my expectations were not met by Mass Effect 2. They were surpassed in almost every way. And like that started from the beginning, and the like massive, beautiful star system behind the elusive man, and like Martin Sheen's extremely
Ah,
commanding performance, and like everything from the beginning where you're like, I mean, there's really good voice performances in Mass Effect 1, but like they shelled out for Martin Sheen, like in Mass Effect 2, and he's just like chewing scenery as this extremely obvious villain from the very beginning. And like it just doesn't let up. It introduces you to like reintroduce you to Garrus in like a very cool way, very quickly, and like the style of giving you basically carte blanche to go after these very interesting dossiers. And when you're new to the game, you have no idea who these people are, so you're like hunting them down, looking for like it, and it doesn't. The game is so good because it just builds on itself over time to the point of like you're getting all these people and then you're getting to basically checkpoints for major story missions. Excuse me. And then the relationships with these characters are growing to the point where then you start doing their loyalty missions, and then your relationship with each other starts expanding and growing, and suddenly it becomes this big like group project where everyone is mad at each other or has some kind
It
of
is
relationship
musical
review
theater.
fixed. It
Yeah.
is musical theater, yes. And then you get to the suicide mission. It culminates in this like great moment. Like I have a specific I have a lot of specific memories from like inhaling Mass Effect 3 when it first came out and like being very pleased with it until the end where I was felt a little mild disappointment, but overall being very pleased. And like, but I do have a very distinct memories of playing through Mass Effect 2 for the first time and playing through the suicide mission and choosing my like biotic force field person badly and watching Garrus get carried away
Oh,
by hornets and standing up and hitting the power button on my Xbox as quickly as I possibly could. And I played the whole thing over again because I was like, nope, I was traumatic enough seeing him get carted away. I'm not gonna let that stand.
I didn't realize I could get armor on the ship, or at least I missed it. So before I even got there, I was like, safety button, reset.
Yep, Jacob's dead, or whoever that ends up killing. I think it ends up killing Jacob, if I'm not. I don't remember. I
I
used to
couldn't
know
afford to lose any of them.
all
You
of
know,
those.
like
Correct.
it
Yes.
was a found family situation for me.
Yeah. And like it's a game that just builds upon itself over time, over and over and over again. And it's like I just can't remember a time where it's so one of the hardest things about finding a game that you really love is like and then waiting for the sequel is the inevitability as an adult where you're like, I'm going to overhype this and it's not going to reach that that level for me. And like, one of the most recent games that's hit onto my pantheon is the 2018's God of War. It's a game that I really, really love and resonate with, especially now as like a parent
I was gonna
myself.
say, if did you
It
play it
hits
before or
different.
after?
Yeah, I both. And I think my wife was pregnant when Ragnarok came out, so it was like, but that was a game that like I think is really good, but I was pretty cognizant the entire time. I'm like, I don't think this is quite hitting the same way. And I think like it's a great game that just doesn't quite live up to the mythos that 2018 has for me. And so to have a game like Mass Effect where I just was like, this, I've never played a game like this. I love this style of game. It's like getting a little bit of Gears of War, like you said, into these RPG systems that I have very little familiarity with. And then going into like, I now know Mass Effect back and forth before 2 comes out. And then just I mean, it's a boring answer to the question, but like from the beginning, there was never a moment where I felt like it dipped. I mean, this sounds insulting to Mass Effect 1, a game that I love, but it never dipped to the level of Mass Effect 1 ever. It just felt like they turned on the gas and it was just going the whole time. And it's never dropped below that threshold for me every time I've replayed it.
I don't think that's a boring answer because I think it's true. I think in the lead up to Mass Effect 2, at least in my gaming circles, we were all replaying Mass Effect 1 and we were all figuring out our canon storyline. Like
Mm-hmm.
who do we want to romance? I learned to love Cade Alenko just because I did not enjoy Ashley. And it's kind of like there's so few amazing movie sequels, but the one I think of is Hellboy 2, The Golden Army. Like I had known Hellboy. I knew the world, and Hellboy 2 really just jettisoned you in. And it was like all killer, no filler for 2 hours. And then I've always been waiting for Hellboy 3. And it's never coming, unfortunately. I don't think it's a boring answer. We've been there. You know, that's the way, unfortunately, I built up a few other BioWare games in my head,
Mm-hmm.
but Mass Effect really was able to hit that sweet spot. If you don't mind, can we go back to the moment that you realized that you were bisexual? So that moment really stuck out to me because as a straight cisgendered white man playing another BioWare game, Dragon Age Inquisition, I love Dorian. Dorian is
Same.
such a breath of fresh air. Not only was he a Tevinter mage, but he was basically like queer Tony Stark. That was one of my most powerful companions, and I ended up romancing him without realizing it. And as somebody that grew up very Roman Catholic, as somebody that didn't have a lot of experiences with the queer community, Dorian was a gateway for me to not just talk to a queer character, but understand them a bit more. Just want to hear a little bit more from you about the way that impacted you early in your life, because you were only in high school. That's a time where
Yeah.
you're going through a crisis of identity. You're trying to figure yourself out. Did this game really make you feel seen?
I mean, to a degree, it was very. I grew up in a very like Christian conservative home, and like my parents were very close now, where they're super groovy, but and hip to all the cool stuff, and are very accepting and cool. But at the time, it was like I was surrounded by much more conservative people in my spaces by just virtue of the positions that I was being put in. Like, I went to a Christian school and everything, so like very much grew up in a not super like gay friendly environment.
Same.
Very much grew up in a world of being like praying that I, as a theater kid and being told I was queer all the time, even though I didn't think I was, being like worrying and praying and hoping that I wasn't. That kind of thing was very common, and is pretty much common in everyone that I know that grew up in similar spaces. So like to me, in when this game came out in 2010, I was pretty much like I had reached a point where I was leaving my religious school and was going to go finish out the last 2 years of high school at a public school, which was great for me. Probably one of the best decisions of my life. But like I had, I think like a lot of people, I had a family member who came out as gay, and that kind of changed. And he had been very influential to me, especially like in theater and stuff when I was growing up. And so that was like had it was initially very like heart wrenching and difficult to deal with, and then became something that was like became the outlet where my entire family became quite a bit more accepting around that idea, and it kind of changed a lot of my perspective, and I started pushing back against friends of mine in more conservative spaces about like I knew somebody who was gay and I had been around them, and I had witnessed that it is the same exact phenomenon as when your cousin introduces you to his boyfriend as when your sister introduces you to their boyfriend. It's the same exact relationship, and I was began telling people that I was around me about this around that age, and like it became an important becoming like an ally was an important part of like who I who I was and was becoming at that age. Not to like, you know, like brush. It's very easy to sound annoying about that, but like it was a became a big like that journey was very important to me. And so then when Mass Effect 2 came out, I was like right around in that very delicate window, and that they captured. I didn't initially want to. I was a male shep kind of a person for Mass Effect 1 and all my playthroughs, and then it wasn't until you found out that like you can romance Garrus, but it has to be through FemShep that I was like, oh okay, I guess I'll do a female shepherd playthrough, and then obviously loved it. Jennifer Hale's like kills it, but
Mhm.
I think it's the specifics with the Garrus romance that is so good, and I think really like awakened a different kind of understanding. Because like I'm married to a woman, I have a child and another one more kid on the way, and then we're done. But the yeah,
Congratulations.
thanks, thanks. Um, and like so it's not like I'm not visibly in any kind of danger as like a technically queer person. It's very easy to be like fall back into world of like I'm technically bisexual but not like I'm not practicing like I'm Catholic, but
Not like queer presenting
yeah,
to people
exactly.
that may not understand.
And that's been a whole like thing of trying to come to grips of being like no, I can celebrate and be part of the queer community even though I'm like in a very straight presenting relationship. But like the aspect of I think the relationship between Femshep and Garrus that kind of what felt permissive in a way is like it's just of the romances in any game that I've played, it's the most like buddy pal romance of anything I've ever seen. It's so like he's so awkward, deeply awkward about it. And like Femshep isn't that much less awkward about it, and Morden makes everything even more uncomfortable that it becomes like it's just I mean the romance, it's telling that the romance follow-up scene in Mass Effect 3 is like you and Garrus sitting in the Citadel shooting bottles. Like, it becomes very like, this is just like the reason I wanted to romance Garrus was because he was like a friend companion that I enjoyed spending time with. And that is, I think, the more adult realization as you get older about romance in general is like, that's all romance is too. Is it's just that with like a little bit of extra attraction thrown onto it. And like, in that way, I think like, it's a great gate to move into the world of like understanding a different element of your sexuality, because it allows you to pursue something that is just like, oh, this person was just my friend, and it doesn't matter that he's a lizard dude, in the same way that it doesn't matter, like, I still love him and he's great, in the same way that it doesn't matter like in real life if you're the same sex as that person. So like, I think in that way, like, it feels a little bit, I mean, like, Fox News would have a field day with this clip 10, 20 years ago, but it feels a bit like a gateway to having a better understanding. The context of that for anybody is that Mass Effect was kind of the first big Fox News scandal game. One of them, because of the lesbian relationship that you could have in Mass Effect 1. But it feels like a gateway to helping kind of people understand, like, what, in a way, like, how same-sex attraction is the same thing. It's the same kind of relationship. It's just like pieces fit different.
And in a lot of those games, it's not a to-do. It's not
Yeah.
like, whoa, what's going on? People, to my memory, just react the same way. It's not you're dating a, a masculine or feminine person. Oh, you're dating this person. Okay. Like, people live in a world with all these different alien species. They're being hunted by the Reapers. They don't have time to discriminate against this sort of thing. It doesn't
Yeah.
make sense. It just takes away energy that they could be using for anything else.
It's one of the things I love the most about Star Trek as a series is that, like, it is the entire point of it is that it's future hopeful. And like, Mass Effect isn't totally that, because there's a lot, it trucks a lot in bigotry and speciesism and a bunch of like cultural clashing that just doesn't work out great, and a lot of general problems that the various different races have with each other. But like, no one makes that big of a deal. Like, the only person who makes a big deal about you and Garrus, really, to my memory, is your doctor, which makes sense. Like,
and you just get drunk with her anyway. Like, it's a very loving relationship.
Oh yeah, I mean,
there's
Chakwas, I think, makes some comments about it, but it's Morden that takes you aside and is like, it's one of, I was talking to my wife about this the other day. It's like, why the romance is so good. It's like, because Morden will, like, in a very doctor kind of way, that Morden doesn't talk to you for the rest, like in the rest of the missions. When you go talk to him about it, he'll just bring it up out of nowhere, as if it's like a ship rumor that you and Garrus are getting started, but in a very doctor kind of fashion. He brings it up like no judgment or anything like that, just very much like, hey, so I started looking into this for you. And he has that very fast way of talking. So he's like, I started looking into this because I heard a ship rumor about you and the Turian, and blah 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 blah. Here's some recommendations I have, some creams you might want to use to avoid chafing. Also, like, don't ingest any of his fluid. That would be bad for your health. It's very matter of fact doctor talk from him, and like, there is no judgment in like, you're technically taking your life into your own hands by having sex with this weird avian lizard guy, in a very tasteful sex scene where I'm sure the animators were like, we don't know what to do with this, so I guess we'll just, like, they'll get close to kissing, and then we also don't have a good model for what a Turian chest looks like outside of armor, so I guess we'll cut a lot of stuff. But it makes it very tasteful.
I'm thinking about the untasteful parts. When I romanced Miranda, I was like, we're just going to get busy here in the core? Is this healthy?
Does it really?
And from what I remember, you're like in the core, and then you go to kiss, and then you see a butt, and I was like, this isn't the way I wanted this.
That seems
to go.
nuclearly dangerous.
Yeah, like you're smart people. You have a scientific mind. You should think about this. Also, this had to have happened before, and you had to have known what happened to those people. You're like, I don't believe for a second that Shepard's the only one getting busy on the Normandy. I have to imagine people are screwing all the time.
I think Kelly and oh god, what's his name? The
Kelly,
Irish guy, or not the engineers who hang out and banter together by Italian.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I'm gonna lose my. I've been so good on all the different names this entire time, and I'm gonna completely forget them. But the two little I think it's lightly or heavily implied that they're hooking up by the end of Mass Effect 2, and they're like right by the core all the time. got to do something. I mean, you think
Maybe it makes it better.
It at least have to do something to your fertility, but I don't think Miranda has that problem anyway. I think she's sterile.
Yeah.
I think that's a part of her plot line. So maybe it doesn't matter.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah, that's absolutely a whole other. Yeah, that one of the other ways that Mass Effect 2. I mean, I think they fixed it in the Legendary Collection, but one of the only major way. There's a lot of stuff that Mass Effect 2 is like pretty ahead of its time on, and like obviously BioWare was like very ahead of its time on, like same-sex relationships and everything like that in games, and like having gay representation for people, which is awesome. There's a real male gaze in the original Mass Effect 2, especially with Miranda, that is like pretty icky.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons why I'm like, I'm going to go back and be femshep.
Yeah.
And also, whenever I tried to make myself in Mass Effect, I looked like an Asian version of myself, and I just could never make me look like me. The downfall of the show is whenever somebody brings a game and they speak passionately about it like you are, I want to play it again. And I've played through Mass Effect 1, 2, 3 so many times. At least Dragon Age has the keep, but like, I know I have to start at the beginning and play through all of them, but maybe that'll be a little treat for me after all of my Resident Evil Requiem playthroughs. But Ryan, I said at the top of the show, I really appreciated everything that you've done for my Destiny career, but thanks for being vulnerable. Thanks for telling us about your favorite game.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. I just love the enthusiasm, and that just pinballs around inside me. Once again, the best place to find your work is Rogue.site?
Rogue.site, yeah. Yep, Rogue.site. We're totally user and subscriber supported. We don't do ads or anything like that. So, and also there's free membership as well. If you just want to see most of the content that we post, you can do that. But if you can kick us anything, we sure appreciate it. I'm also on a marathon podcast called Escape Will Make Me Pod that comes out every week, which is a real fun time with YouTubers Scare9 and Jake the Alright. So if you're into marathon and you're excited about that, you should check that out. We probably got a lot of stuff coming up with the game coming out. So those are my plugs. That's where you can find most of what I'm doing these days.
Perfect. I love that. And listeners, I love you. Thank you so much for listening to Last Save Lounge. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did. And hey, if you haven't played Mass Effect yet, there's so many avenues for you to do so. You can pick up the Legendary Collection on consoles and on PC. I know it works decently on a Steam Deck if you have one of those as well, but any way you play it, it's going to be better than playing it on the Xbox 360. As always, The Last Save Lounge is produced by Hoodie Weather, creating comfy games and podcasts broken in like your favorite hoodie. You can support Hoodie Weather by heading to patreon.com/hoodieweather and becoming a Patreon patron for just $1. Also, check out our TikTok and Instagram. I've begun doing a series of videos called Games That Made Me, talking about the games that helped me realize a point of growth in my life. The last one I did was Artful Escape, all about identity. And I have a new one coming up on Jedi Fallen Order about getting over my pride of playing on easy mode. Playing on easy mode, that's the life, man. It's awesome. Ryan, thank you so much. And we'll see you next week. Bye. Hello.